Welcome back to Divorce in Plain English. I'm Vincent James, and today's episode is different. For 2 seasons, I've talked about the financial side of divorce, the forms, the court processes, the assets, the pensions, all from my own lived experience. But divorce is not just about the money. And today, I want to talk about something I have not fully addressed before, what it does to you emotionally. I'm joined today by someone who understands this better than almost anyone I know. Venus Olla is a registered psychotherapist based in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, with many years of experience helping people navigate trauma, grief, and life transitions. She's also someone I trust completely. Venus, welcome to Divorce in Plain English.
Hello, Vincent. How are you doing? It's very nice to be here today.
I'm very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you on this podcast. As you well know, divorce is something that is very, very complicated and difficult to maneuver when you're in it. It tends to carry a lot of emotional problem along with it. Based on your own clinical experience, Venus, what does divorce actually do to a person emotionally? What are you seeing in the people who come to you?
Oh, I mean, it's a very good question. Obviously, I would actually like to take it back to your own experience because remember we've had many conversations over the years about that emotional toll. It can be very different for different people emotionally, depending on whether you're the person who has to have the courage, right, to actually bring up this discussion and ask for a divorce from your partner. It's different if you're the person who's hearing it from your partner. So there's many different emotions, I would say, that people come to therapy with carrying, whether it's sadness, anger, feelings of betrayal and hurt. And just trying to navigate those experiences can be very overwhelming for people, as you might expect.
Yes, you're very, very correct. I was much more, I would say I experienced a lot of anger during my divorce process because number one, it was something that I never really expected. I never really wanted it to go ahead. I felt a lot of anger with myself, with my partner, and with people around me because I felt everybody was much more not concerned as to why this was taking place. But unfortunately, divorce is not something that you take lightly. If you take the decision to go ahead, then you have to go ahead with it. It had a massive impact on me, to be very honest, and I was quite upset. I was quite downtrodden. I was all over the place. It was not something nice, and it's not something I would encourage anyone to go to, except you have a cogent reason why you need to go through that personal experience.
And actually, just wanted to add to that one emotion that that I find that people struggle with the most, and honestly, it is a very, very difficult emotion, and it's shame. And a lot of people don't really talk about divorce from that lens because obviously, think about it, right? When we get married, most of us take those vows very seriously. I know you did, right? The vow to be with someone till death do you part. And, again, and I'm just talking about or picking up with what you talked about in terms of family and friends, depending as well on the structure of your kind of extended family and the belief systems, the religious belief systems around being married and what that means. So for lots of people as well, I find, who come for therapy, they're dealing with those feelings of shame.
Yes.
What did I do wrong? How could I how could I have done something better? What are other people thinking about me? So
Yes.
I'm really thankful for even expressing some of the emotions of the anger because shame is definitely a huge emotion that people feel through divorce. And it doesn't matter, again, whether you're the one who's asking for the divorce, whether you're the one who's receiving divorce. Often people really kind of have to navigate those feelings of shame.
Yes, that is very true. Because I felt so embarrassed. I felt like, why is this happening to me? All of my friends, all of my family, none of them has gone through divorce processes like this. it was quite annoying, and there was no information or no help out there to sort of guide me through the processes as to, okay, this is what you were supposed to do, this is where you should go, this is who you should speak to, this is what will help you. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of information out there, but the problem is you cannot get them in one place or put them together for your use. A lot of them are just different, topics and different ways of expressing, which does not necessarily mean will benefit everyone's situation.
Well,
So
I was sorry. Oh, sorry, but just and to add to that, I really do, Vincent. Most life experiences are very individual. So the circumstances in which something can occur. So I would agree that there's good information out there in terms of that general understanding of divorce, but often and this is for anything in life, there are those contextual experiences, those individual aspects of a life transition like divorce, which is nuanced, right? It's just very, very nuanced. And I often say to people, you have to be careful, because sometimes you can read something and you might not feel the way that it's saying, and then that can evoke shame, or that can evoke, anger, or all the different emotions. So I do try to tell clients as well, just to be mindful of what they're reading, and being able to kind of, I'm trying to find the right word, but read with understanding that it is general information.
Yeah.
And you need to take what you need to take and leave out what you don't, leave out what you have to leave out or need to leave out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just a thought when you're saying those things, because it's very relevant.
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Another thing I want to look at is which, caused a massive impact on me. All of us, my ex-partner as well, was the issue of grief. Unfortunately, during the whole scenario, well, our marriage has been on the rocks way before the issue of we lost our eldest son, at the age of 21. Grief is another thing that I find difficult to navigate around. When it happened, it was like the whole world fell on my head, and at the same time trying to navigate the divorce process as well. It was really devastating, and I tried to get counseling during that processes and everything, but even then, those two things are completely different, and there's no way you can put them together and deal with them at the same time. So you just have to find a way to just work around, both situations at the same time, which was quite tough. I struggled a lot with that. This is a major thing that there is no textbook for this, except for people who has gone through it, who you can speak to if there's anyone that's gone through the same process. How do you help people process that kind of loss?
Well, that's okay. That's a very obviously, as you already know, you've already really navigate. Like, I have to say this to the your audience. I have been so just honored and impressed by how Vincent has navigated his loss of his son, and
thank you.
So I'm going to try and kind of give this so that it's two parts to this. So the first really is the loss of your son, which when I would speak to Vincent, I was concerned that he might have something called, or experience something called traumatic grief or traumatic bereavement. And in the case of traumatic bereavement, is when we aren't able to really process an experience of loss because the loss has been very sudden, through an accident, some violent death, and often when it's sudden, it can really complicate the grieving process. It really can cause a lot of depression. Grief is already difficult anyway, but it's another term is called traumatized or traumatic grief. And this is when this prolonged grief in terms of really not being able to move through the emotions of loss, to gain some, and I use I'm just again to disclaim the use of acceptance, because I'm not using in a trivialized sense of, okay, this becomes, okay, whatever, this is what happened. But acceptance of that loss, that life will always be different moving forward. It's never going to be the same, right? So I mean acceptance from that perspective, not acceptance from, oh, well, this is fine type thing. So traumatic bereavement or traumatic grief is when we have a sudden loss like that. Some of the symptoms of the nightmares, difficulty sleeping, attempts to avoid all thoughts and activities associated with what might have happened, flashbacks, emotional numbness, anxiety, and these will last from anywhere from 3 months moving to 6 months to a year, right? And for that, I advise any of your audience to ensure they go and get professional help. You need to get professional help. I will often ensure that a client will have not just mental health supports in terms of therapy, but sometimes people need to go and actually get medical intervention in terms of whether it's antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication, whatever is needed to help an individual kind of be able to cope and manage. And I very, very strongly ask people, your audience, to really ensure that they get the help they need. The second part really is when we're talking about grief, when it's the loss of something, and the grieving process. The difference between like the loss of kind of, in divorce, because divorce is a loss, right? It's a loss of many things, loss of identity. It can be loss of home. It can be loss of friends that you used to have, between the two parties, loss of a lifestyle. There's a lot of loss there. There's lots and lots of loss, right?
Yeah.
And, this is natural, and having those different emotions, whether sometimes at the beginning we can feel denial.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't actually really happening. We can work at this. There's really nothing wrong. This is, denial. And you spoke about this earlier, Vincent, when you were talking about the anger that one can feel. The anger that, okay, we made this vow, right? Maybe one party feels that the other party isn't working hard enough to try and save this marriage. Some people feel angry because they feel, depending on, for example, divorce can happen because of cheating, right? And that betrayal and the anger that comes up with that betrayal, and anger is a part of the grieving process. Sometimes we move through the kind of stage of bargaining. Maybe we can do this, maybe we can live together, but we don't share the same bed, or this is another part of that grieving process. And then one very important part is the sadness, or depression, or the very low moods, because that's often the time when we're just thinking, well, the realization that this is happening really hits and becomes reality. Right? And that's often where people feel very sad. The low moods, waking up, not wanting to get out of bed. Sometimes people find they have a loss of appetite, right? Sometimes sleeping too much, sometimes sleeping too little. So it's individual. The emotional response will be very individual. But again, I'm just trying to give your audience just some general understanding of, if you're seeing these types of signs, then, it's worth trying to reach out for supports and get that help. But when you put the two together, loss of a loved one and also loss through divorce, it can become very, very complicated. And I just strongly suggest people really reach out and get the supports that they need.
Thank you very much, Venus. That's great advice there. And then one thing I would want to add as well is support of friends and family. I think it goes a long way, because that really helped me as well. I never used to be someone who used to speak. As a man, we men have this ego of not communicating our feelings to people or to friends or to family. But the impact of the divorce processes and losing my son, I think that really made me to think and decide that, look, I need to speak to people, just to get a kind of encouragement and just to keep me going as well, because I was in a very dark place, still coming out of the dark place, to be honest. I'm not truly out yet, but I think it really helped me, having people around me. Well, few people, because not everybody's has the or really want to stay around, so about few people stayed around me, and it really it helped me, and it's still helping me, because there are times that I feel lonely, I feel down, I just want to talk to somebody, I just call, I cry, I laugh, I play, because my son's passing is never going to go away. It's going to live with me for the rest of my life. So it's going to be something that is going to be, I'm going to continue to have different mood swings at different times. So having people around me really, really helped me, and it's still helping me anyway. So I totally agree with you 100% with what you said. Another thing I want to, find out what you think about, mostly has to do with the financial side of things. Unfortunately, I carried a lot of the financial pressure alone during my divorce. I was working 7 days a week. I had to take responsibility of everything, from housing, maintenance, everything. 95% of the outgoings of the house I had to carry it on my head. I had to my sons, before the eldest one left us, unfortunately. I was, fully drained into that, because despite the fact that I was struggling to get all that, there was a point I was just getting loans here and there just to pay off bills, just to pay off school fees. And it was really impacting me. And I was working 7 days a week for at least good, close to 10 years. And then it got to a stage, it began to impact my health. I was beginning to visit my doctor regularly, and he was saying that, look, you've got to find a way to take it easy. You've got to find a way to slow down. You are not a young boy anyway. You're 52. You've got to slow down, and you've got to find a way to cut down your expenses. So I was forced, based on medical grounds, to do that, but I still could not meet up my expenses. My mortgage, I was paying a very high interest rate because my partner refused for us to do remortgaging. So I was fixed. I was stuck on a standard variable rate of 8.8% up till recently. So it was a disaster for me. I was struggling left, right, and center. I really could not meet up, and I just kept on taking loans here and there just to pay the bills. It was a real struggle for me. What does this kind of prolonged stress do to someone psychologically?
Well, really, it will lead to burnout. And, people, I'm giggling because I know that there's some people who probably heard that and they roll their eyes and like, oh yeah, burnout, as if it's quite trivial. Burnout is a very serious mental health condition. It's created or caused when we become overworked, overwhelmed, underappreciated, and we're working at and living in high stress situations for a prolonged period of time. Now, stress, people need to understand, is when our nervous system now is functioning in survival mode. Okay, and we're living in survival mode for long periods of time. When our nervous system is activated, we're really in the fight flight kind of arena. So we're either always defensive or we're isolating. We're just trying to make it work. So burnout involves when we have like emotional exhaustion. And I talk about burnout a lot because I actually experienced burnout 3 years ago. And the emotional exhaustion, it really takes on a physical. So it starts emotionally, but then it becomes this physical exhaustion that we often feel. It can cause aches, pains, without really, you haven't done anything to the body, but you wake up feeling achy, you go to bed feeling achy in your muscles. You can even start getting issues with joint pain. So the emotional exhaustion actually then takes on a physical, exactly how you described it, a physical, a kind of manifestation. One of the huge signs for burnout is cynicism. And I didn't realize this until I experienced it myself. When everything, you just feel very disconnected. Your boss asks you to do anything, you roll your eyes, oh my God, this organization, there's a lot of cynicism towards the world, the news, you're walking down the street, every single thing feels, there's no point almost. It can also be or manifest in this sense of feeling like I haven't really achieved anything, right? I'm working hard. I'm doing these 7 days a week, for example, what you were experiencing, Vincent. And it's like, why am I doing this? I'm still here. It's 10 years later. I'm still the same position.
Yeah.
It's that type of, and every single day you're working harder or to this, at least to that high level of intensity.
Yeah.
And you just feel as if it's almost like going down, I call it like going down kind of like a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And so burnout is what will happen. And the issue with burnout with people, even though people think it's very trivial, it's really not, because like I said, it can end up having a physical manifestation. So we know that stress, which leads to burnout, increases things like heart disease, right? It actually increases things like diabetes, right? Like it really does end up manifesting in physical ailments and physical form, right? And that's why we really do need to be very, very aware of and each person is different. So like I said, for myself, cynicism, when I start getting cynical, I know I'm heading to burnout. That's my indicator. So what I would advise the audience is there are many websites online where you can actually do one of those quick questionnaires about burnout and see where you're at, right? Burnout can be caused from work. Burnout can be caused from family conflict. We're talking about divorce right now. That's a kind of conflict. Notice, are you sometimes, in order to cope, we might start using substances. It starts with a drink after work. Next minute, it's every single day. Next minute, it's 3 or 4 glasses of wine or whatever it is. It could be increased marijuana use, sleeping aids. You have to before you go to bed, you always have to have something, some sort of sleeping aid to help you sleep.
Yeah.
So what I advise people is to become self-aware. Notice your own changes. Notice your emotional responses, the way you might be thinking, right? If you notice that your increased negative behaviors, right? If you notice decreasing in more positive experiences, then I say take note. Reach out for help. Okay, I cannot say this is going to be the most repetitive thing you're going to hear on this episode, which is reach out for help. Reach out for help. Go to your family doctor, do whatever it takes. But it really does first start with self-awareness to notice what is happening, your moods, the thought process you might be having, any physical ailments, changes of these things is really, really important.
Yeah. I totally I agree with everything you've said. In relation to me particularly, as being a man, no disrespect to ladies. because I know
I accept that.
yeah, yeah, we all go through the same thing at the same time. But I'm just looking at it from the perspectives of how we men tend to be stubborn, for instance. Um, it took me almost 10 years to realize that I was going through a rabbit hole, like you called it. I was burning myself out completely. I felt it was a man thing. If I decided to say I need help,
Mm-hmm.
I'm being lazy, or I'm not standing up to my roles and responsibilities as a husband, which dragged me up to this point where I am.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's another thing that I feel that is a massive problem for we men. We don't say our feelings. We don't express our feelings to anyone. We're just bottled up. We don't seek for, we don't look for help. We just feel that, yeah, I'm a man. I just have to get on with it and just do what I have to do. Unfortunately, this has, I would say I am very lucky that I'm still alive. I will be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you, because working 7 days a week for almost 10 years, I know how I felt. I know the impact it had on me. I was always tired. I was always angry. I was always anxious. I never had enough money in my pocket. I was always borrowing for good almost 10 years. It was something that, I did not tell anyone. I just kept on bottling it up and kept on doing that. And that led into the whole divorce process as well. When I started the divorce process, I just started it because I was tired, I was exhausted. I tried to communicate with my ex-partner. Nothing was coming up. And I just kept quiet and I started doing everything myself. So it was a massive, massive impact on me. Um, this leads me to my next question. Why is that, and what does it cost we men? Not women, we men, from your own perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, honestly, Vincent, a lot of men are like you, aren't they? Okay, so I mean, it costs a lot. It costs heart disease and many different issues. Um, Again, though, I'm going to show compassion to men because of the things that you're talking about.
Thank you.
We are still in, well, because we're still especially different age, with we're looking at different age groups, generations, should I say, of men, right?
Yeah,
So majority of men, I would say, even 40 years upwards or 45 years upwards, they grew up. It did, and honestly, it doesn't really matter what cultural background you might have. In general, men have been kind of have this experience, don't cry, a man has to be strong. And that has been translated for a lot of men into an inability to be able to express their emotions.
yeah,
Let me even rewind that, because you can't express your emotions unless you can even identify your emotions, right?
exactly.
So there are many men who've grown up not even be able to identify or be even, sorry, let me rewind that, even be aware that they have emotions, right? So you need to be aware that you have these emotions. Then you have to be able to identify what the emotions are. And then you have to be able to express them, right? In healthy
Mm,
ways. So, as that as the foundation in terms of what we're talking about men and their emotions, that's a big reason why they are silent in divorce. Often men can even, again, exactly how you discussed, Vincent, can be in marriages which they aren't even fully aware that they're not necessarily happy in,
yeah,
right? Um, and so, and then also men, men socialize differently to women in general, by the way, please, just we're doing a podcast
next
in
question.
general, okay? Because obviously there are differences and context for people, but we're talking in general, socialize differently, right? Women do tend to, when we get together, we tend to, that's why for us, our female friends can be very therapeutic in general, because
Mm,
we will talk about our emotions and our frustrations, and he left his boxer shorts on the floor again. Oh my god, men don't tend to do that, right? And they don't necessarily, a lot of men don't necessarily have those social supports and connections.
yeah,
So if it is a man who's listening to this, in to this particular episode, I would strongly again suggest even if you, because a lot of men are also very concerned about asking or reaching out for help,
Yeah.
right? But I would say, even, I think I can say this for Vincent, you just need to speak to one person. So
Very.
it just starts with one person, a person that you can trust, a person that, you can actually, even if you're not sure about what you're experiencing, you can reach out to them and say, look, this is what I'm experiencing. What do you think about it? Get into a conversation with another person so that your thoughts are not kind of in the echo chamber of your own mind, right? So that's one thing I would suggest, even as just a very tentative beginning for someone, a man in the situation, right? It can do wonders. I will always say go for professional help, but I think that can be a first. Sometimes going for professional help can feel very intimidating. It can feel very, very
Very true.
intimidating. And
Yeah.
so that's why I suggest, even if it's one person that you trust, and trust not in the terms of just divulging your business, but trust meaning much deeper in terms of you really do believe they're quite objective people and
Right.
are less likely to be judging of you and your thoughts. So someone like that, I think, it would be very helpful as a first step for someone who might be going through this and who is finding that they're staying silent. Yeah, I think that was really what I would say. I would suggest
Yeah.
first. Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. Thank you very much, Venus, for that.
Mm-hmm. But I have a question for you, Vincent.
Yes, please fire away. Go ahead.
I know this is yours, but I would want to know, what is the one thing you wish people going through divorce knew about, their own emotional response to it?
Good question. The one thing that I wish I knew before or even going into the divorce process is that I wish it would be a lot easier to be able to gather more information to find
Mm.
out. Like you rightly said, there's a lot of information out. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's not information out there or anything, but when it comes to personal experiences and what one people has gone through, in a nutshell, I would like to have something like this that I can search online and say, okay, is there a podcast where I can listen to people's personal experiences that has gone through the divorce processes, what they've gone through personally? Um, it will put a lot of things into perspective and will, in a way, reassure me that the process I'm going through, yes, it's going to be long, it's going to be a long road, it's going to be a dark road, but there's always a bright light at the end of the tunnel. And the reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of people talk about divorce. You only hear about divorce, but you never hear about the end of it because you don't really know what people will say what they want to say, but if you don't know them, then you don't know what the outcome is. You don't know what steps you should take. You don't know what the physical, the emotional experience, what they have gone through emotionally, what they have gone through physically. All those things are not there. All that we hear about are just the court proceedings, what the court, what the outcome is, or what the outcome is not, what the financial side is. Those are the things that you hear. We don't really hear about the emotional side of things, what people have gone through or what they are going through, how they maneuver the emotional side of things. And then, it's for me, I think that will, and I'm sure many other men and ladies, I'm sure if there is something like this out there, when they want to start the process, it will give them a kind of a guidance as to what the outcome will be. That is what I feel.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Thank you. I like that. I also wanted to add something, an emotion that we actually haven't spoken about, and I know we're coming close to the end, but it's also fear.
Yes.
And one thing I have noticed in my clinical experience, and it doesn't matter whether you're the one asking for the divorce or the one who's, being asked for divorce, is often the grieving process can be very much, and even because we're talking about difficult divorces as well, and I think
Mm.
that one of the biggest contributing factors for difficult divorces and one level is fear.
Yeah.
Often, sometimes we don't want to let go of someone because
Yeah.
we are fear of the unknown, of what's on the
Yes.
other side of this
Yes.
divorce, right?
Yes.
Sometimes we want to hold on to someone because of fear, right? And I do think that is also an emotional response that a lot of people don't. I don't know if we, even if, I don't know if people even know sometimes that it is fear that is kind of that underlying emotion that they might be having.
Very true.
Often people stay in marriages, dysfunctional marriages, longer than they need to
Yeah.
because of fear.
Yeah.
So that's the only, we're talking about one thing I do wish people kind of going through divorce or going through a difficult marriage or is to be aware of how your fear can be impacting your decision making.
Yeah.
And the choices, that you make.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you very much, Venus. That's been very enlightening and very nice. I hope people would listening to this podcast will enjoy it. Last but not the least question I want to ask is for someone listening right now who is struggling emotionally in the middle of their divorce, what is the first step you will tell them to take?
Honestly, it would be an inventory of the emotions that they might be having at that time. I would say, just, with the, if you can find some space in your weekend where you can kind of go away and actually sit and write a list of the emotions that you might be feeling.
Yeah.
Right. And again, like, we just talked about, like, I would ask the question, is fear guiding my steps? Am I not guiding, but is fear controlling my steps? Right.
Great.
And then really kind of looking at what is this fear about? And I really think that would be a very good place for people to really start. Because if I'm hanging on to a partner that does not want to be with me anymore,
Yeah.
is that because of fear of being alone?
Yeah.
Is it a fear of not having finances? Whatever it is, but that would be the first to get kind of understanding what is controlling and gripping me in this difficult divorce.
Yeah.
And then ask for help. Get support. That's my second thing. Get support. I can't say that enough. As Vincent said, like, you cannot, it's difficult to do life alone, and we don't need to have hundreds of people, but if we can just be brave enough, it takes courage to reach out for help. It takes courage to live a full life. And so I will always say to people, even if it's just one trusted person, but please reach out for help. You can't do life alone.
Totally agree with you. Venus, this has been one of the most important conversations I have had on this podcast. Thank you for being here and for being so open. For anyone listening who would like to work with Venus, her practice is Olla Healing Arts and her website is venusolla.com. That's VENUSOLLA.com. She offers free initial consultations, so there is no barrier to reach out. Venus, a closing thought for our listeners, please.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for tuning in. And really, I hope that this episode has been useful to you, even if it's just like, a first step on the emotional journey of acknowledging the emotional journey of your divorce, if you are going through one. If it's someone who's supporting someone through divorce, I really hope it's giving you some suggestions and an understanding of what that person might be going through. And honestly, Vincent, just thank you for inviting me to be on the podcast. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's thank you very much. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much for your time, and I hope you want to come back some other time.
Yes, of course. Yes. I would love to.
Thank you very much, Venus. Thank you. If this episode resonated, please follow the podcast on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube so you never miss an episode. Share it with someone who needs it to hear it today. I also offer personal sessions at £95 via Calendly. Details are in the show's notes. See you in the next episode. Thank you for now. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.